I want to start by telling you about the four main regions of the brain before we go into detail, a little bit more detail on each one of those parts. So here is an image of the brain. This should look, you should be able to name some of the main components here. So these grooves and ridges, these are the gyri and sulci, and these then make up the bulk of the cerebrum. So the cerebrum is the largest portion of the brain in vertebrates, and the cerebrum is going to be composed of the cerebral cortex. This is the outside of the brain, the cortex, that has gray matter cell bodies on the outside. And then we're also going to have, as part of the cerebrum, some internal nuclei as well, some cell bodies that are a little bit deeper. These are called the basal nuclei. So these two different components make up the cerebrum. We'll talk a little bit more about the cerebrum. There's going to be white matter in there as well. Also shown here is the cerebellum. The cerebellum is the little brain. So we've got 1, 2. The cerebellum is involved in motor control. It's the second largest region of the brain. Talk a little bit more about it. And then we've got 2 other regions that we're going to zoom into in here. Spinal cord is not part of the brain, right? It's part of the central nervous system, but not part of the brain. So I want to zoom in to this component here that I just circled. This is going to be our brainstem here on the bottom. And up on the top here is our diencephalon. The diencephalon is made up of 3 regions called the thalamus. There's a region above the thalamus. What might that be called? It's called the epithalamus. And then we've got a region below the thalamus as well. This is going to be called the hypothalamus. You can't really see the hypothalamus and epithalamus in this image. The bulk of this is the thalamus. We'll go into a little bit about each of those. So that's kind of embedded deep within the brain, is the diencephalon. Then lastly, there is the brainstem. So this is region 3 here. I don't care what number is what, right? There's 4 regions. The 4th region is the brainstem. This is made up of the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata, which is also just called the medulla. We'll talk some about these related to the autonomic nervous system as well as cranial nerves. You can see cranial nerves arising from the brainstem. Cranial nerves are a lot like spinal nerves, but they arise from the brain instead of the spinal cord.